in just we talked about how you can look in a from join class, how you can look at the part from table 1 to the end of the join as one relation, right? You can look at it as if table 1 join table 2 on something, then join table 3 on something, etc., etc. This can be considered one relation. In fact, there are more things into this point of view, relational view of joins. So SQL, we know that it's some kind of a layman's term for relational algebra. They are SQL operations like select are relational algebra operations. So no matter how complex the query can be, it looks like the result of each select is still just another relation. And because of this, you can actually do a subquery. You can actually put a subquery, a query into another SQL to be the subject of another SQL, right? You can do a select something from a relation, from a table, then there's nothing stopping you from replacing this table with the result of another query, because the result of another query is just a subquery. It's just a relation. So here is how you will write it. You will select something from parentheses as something, as a table alias. And inside this parenthesis, you will put a query. And here we use a very simple one, like as if select star from, but there's no problem stopping you, nothing for stopping you from writing a from join, and group by, all these things. Similarly, from outside, you can do a from this parenthesis as a table alias, join something. Or you can do a from one table joining a parenthesis of subquery as some table alias. So this part, usually we call it, starting from the parenthesis side. This part, subquery, is considered a full independent relation. You can use it anywhere that you can use a table. You can do a from of this part. You can do a join of this part. You can even put this inside another subquery and form a subquery, right? The only thing to pay attention to is, we already mentioned when we discussed table alias, that table alias is optional, unless you are doing a self join where you need to reference the same table twice, where you do need a table alias. The other place where you do need a table alias, where table alias is required, is subquery. PostgreSQL mandates that you have to have a table alias for the subquery. And the reason is simple, is because if you have a multiple relations joining, whether it's a table or a relation or a subquery, that's fine. But then you need a way to identify the column, right? You need a way to identify a column later on if you want to qualify on a certain column. So Postgres determines that it's easier to enforce this through syntax than running into an error when of an ambiguous column name when you actually run into the issue, right? So Postgres mandates that you have to have a table alias after subquery. And this part, the highlighted part here, from parentheses and the subquery inside to the S table alias is one full part. It forms a relation, a new relation called Jedi instructor. You can, this is what we call a nested query, where you have a main query with subqueries, within which there are subqueries, sub-subqueries. So you can, when you run into this nested query with a main query with subquery and sub-subquery, and maybe even deeper, it may looks very confusing. So the first thing you need to do is probably to add an indentation, probably to do a proper line break each class into one line and add indentation for manually add indentation. There are also tools for it, right? Adding indentation and match table with each other, and then work out each query as a relation, one level from inside to outside. Identify each subquery, what this relation is, where does the data comes from, what where clause or having clause is applied, why does it warrants the different subquery, different layer. What's the purpose of this subquery? And once you figure out what this new relationship, this relation is about, once you figure out the purpose of this subquery and identify the purpose of this relation, you use this relation to join with other relation and filtered by where and having with some group by, to go one level higher to see what this relation, this time what the subquery is about, all the way until you reach the end. That's how you analyze a nested query. Yeah, you just think about each query component as a relation. That's just takes some time to move from inside to outside. Okay.